Variable ND filters can be really frustrating. I got home from a shoot a couple days ago and my FX3 and my FX9 really didn't match. I actually thought I had set the white balance wrong on my FX3. I went back through, the white balance was correct, and I couldn't figure out why the colors were so different between the two cameras. They generally vary a little bit, but it was a lot. And the FX3 footage just didn't look right. It looked like it had a really yellow or just really warm cast to it. And I thought about the fact that I had used this Tiffin variable ND. And I know that variable NDs, which are basically just two polarizers that you twist and they let less or more light in as you twist them, can cause a color cast on your image. So I did some camera tests on my FX3 and my FX9 to see what the electronic ND did to the FX9 image and what the variable ND did to the color of the FX3 image. I did the same test on the FX3 and the FX9. I shot in Cinetone on both cameras and in S-Log3 on both cameras. And I did the test without ND and with pretty heavy ND for each. I changed nothing except for aperture and ND. Those are the only two changes. Put ND on and I changed aperture to expose correctly. I used a waveform monitor to expose for middle gray as close as I possibly could so that the exposure values were very, very similar. And I have corrected the S-Log3 with color space transform in DaVinci Resolve. This first test on the left is the FX3. That's all in purple. And this is the FX3 with no ND and S-Log3. Looks pretty great. That's with the Tiffin variable ND. And I've got it cranked down about as far as it'll go, so it's pretty heavy ND. And there's a definite color difference. And this is exactly what I experienced on set. It looked a lot warmer, a lot more yellow. So it's definitely got a color cast, and a pretty significant one, like more significant than I realized. It's not horrible, it's correctable, but I'd prefer it not be there. Let's go to Cinetone. So this is, again, the FX3, no ND, S Cinetone. And that's with the ND. Again, I've got the ND cranked about as far as it'll go. And that's, it's about the same result. With the ND on, it's a much warmer, kind of got more of a yellow, maybe tending toward a little bit green color cast. So over here on the right in orange is the FX9 footage I shot. I did the same test with the FX9. Again, didn't change anything but variable ND and aperture to adjust for exposure. And I really didn't expect there to be much of a difference between having ND and not having ND. So this is the FX9, no ND in S-Log3. And this is with ND. And there is a very slight color difference. Without ND, it seems to tend a little more green. With ND, it's a little cooler. Look at that. Look at the middle gray. With ND, without ND. There's a definite color difference. It's slight, but it's there, and I didn't expect there to be a color difference. Let's look at S-Cinetone. S-Cinetone, no ND. It's cooler with, like, tends toward blue a little more with the ND on. And maybe a little more towards green without ND. That's super interesting. So now the question is, do I keep this ND and just correct it in post or get different ND? Heard a lot of people say that the Peter McKinnon, I think they're the Polar Pros, are really good, but Philip Bloom did a test, whole big, you should watch Philip Bloom's video on variable NDs. And those have a color cast too. According to Philip Bloom's test, it seems like the Freewell K2s have very, very minimal effect on the color of your image. And those would probably be the ones to go with, but they're like $500. So is it worth $500? I think so. I think maybe. I got to think about it a little bit because, you know, the footage that I shot a couple days ago, I delivered directly to the client. So they're going to see the color difference. I don't think they're going to complain about it. They will be able to correct it very easily. But I don't know. Something to think about. And the fact that the electronic ND in the FX9 changed the color slightly as well. I thought the variable electronic ND in the FX9 and like the FX6 wasn't really supposed to change the color at all. Changes it very slightly, obviously, but you know, there is a physical piece or physical filter that comes over the the sensor when you turn the variable ND on, so it does make sense that it might change it slightly. But that's a little disappointing, but not a big deal. It was pretty slight. Anyway, if you want to see a much more in-depth test about variable NDs, watch Philip Bloom's The Truth About Variable NDs. It's great. You'll learn a lot, and he really tests a bunch of stuff really, really well, and it educated me a lot about variable ND filters. I guess I'm spending some money. I'll see you in the next one.